Hey everybody, Mrs. Norris here. So what I'd like to do in this video today is walk you through the responses to document C on our DBQ. How did the Constitution guard against tyranny? So I have here my stepson's student example of this activity. And as you can see, I've already answered questions 2, 3, and 4. Those were really the simplest of the 5 questions. Most people had no issue with filling these out. But if you did have some notes from me, some feedback on your response to these questions, please make sure that you pause this tutorial and go back and change your answers now. So what I'd like you to do actually, before we start anything, what I'd like for you to do is open up your own document so that you can kind of compare what I have done to what you have done. Now, you're not going to be resubmitting document C, but you will have a response to a question that you will be answering in the discussion down below this tutorial. So please make sure that you stick around for the complete tutorial, and then you'll be able to answer those questions in the discussion thread. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to go ahead and open up your own document C, and then you can have your version and my tutorial side by side so that you can check your work along with me. All right, so hopefully at this point you have your version of document C open, and then you have this tutorial open at the same time, and you are checking your work against what I have for an answer. And then just a reminder, at the end of this tutorial, there will be a response down below that I would like for you to answer. Actually, it's not even going to be at the end. I'm going to ask you twice within this video. Okay. So let's look at question number 1. And question number 1 says, what is the main idea of the Madison quote? So I'm going to go ahead to this box up at the top, and I'm going to look at that Madison quote. And it says, the constant aim is to divide and arrange the several offices in such a manner as that they may be a check on the other. The 3 branches should not be so far separated as to have no constitutional control over the other. Now, one bit of feedback that I gave to many of you is that I understand how this might confuse you because he uses a double negative, okay, by saying the 3 branches should not be so far separated as to have no constitutional control over each other. That is a double negative. He's using not and no together in the same sentence, so it can be a little bit confusing. All right. So let's break down what he's saying here. So the constant aim is to divide and arrange the several offices. So the offices of the national government are going to be divided, okay? And they'll be together in such a way that they may be a check on the other. And in the previous discussion video, which is also attached to this document here, you see that, or we learned that when they check each other, they're making sure that each of the other offices is following the law of the Constitution. And you can also see in the graphic below, the legislative branch checks the executive branch by, as we have highlighted here, approving nominations, overriding a veto, things like that, okay? And to continue, the executive branch checks the judicial by nominating judges and so on. So that's what a check is. It's making sure that the other person is following the laws of the Constitution the way that they are written out. So the aim is to divide the offices, separate them, but not so much so that they don't check each other, right? So they still have the power to check each other. Okay, the 3 branches should not be so far separated as to have no constitutional control over each other. So separate them, but don't make them so separated that they can't see what the other group is doing to make sure that what they are doing follows along with the Constitution. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write my answer here for number 1. The 3 branches should be separate, but still have some ability to, quote, check on the powers of the others so that no one branch becomes too powerful. Okay, and we can get that from our answer here. We want to divide and arrange the offices. Okay, and then I'm going to copy that. They may be a check on the other. And have constitutional control over each other. Okay, and this is for my number 1. So what I'd like for you to do right now is pause this tutorial and write this answer in the discussion thread below. So the answer that I've written for number 1, please write that in the discussion thread below. Don't hit reply on your discussion thread because we have another task afterwards. Okay, so again, you're going to pause this tutorial now and copy this answer in the discussion thread below. Okay, so you have copied the response to number 1 in the discussion thread below. And now let's look at number 5. And it says, according to this document, how did the framers of the Constitution guard against tyranny? So this document is all about checks and balances. Yes, there is a separation of power, but not so separated, so not so far apart that they cannot check each other. Okay, so we want them to be separate, but we want them to still have some amount of power over the others, as we said in number 1, so that no one branch becomes too powerful. And that is how the framers used checks and balances in the Constitution as a way to guard against tyranny by separating them, which we talked about in a previous document, separating the powers, making them equal, but still making sure that each has the power over the other to make sure that the other branches are following the law of the Constitution. As long as all of the branches are following the law of the Constitution, we're not going to have one group that has too much power, which means we're not going to have a tyranny. Okay, so let's shape an answer for number 5. Okay. The framers, and some of you wrote farmers, it's the framers, gave each of the 3 branches of government several ways they could limit the power of the other 2 branches. So they're separate, but still checking each other, right? Together, these powers are called checks and balances. By limiting power, so by making sure that not everybody has all the power, it's separated, but they're still held accountable by the other offices. Okay, so by limiting the power, checks and balances, guards against tyranny by keeping one branch from getting more powerful than the others. And this is kind of all of this together is what shows us how the checks and balances works, but also how it can guard against tyranny. So kind of what I'm going to do is just put a number 5 right here for this whole section. And if I wanted to take it a step further, I could draw a box. Okay, I'm going to make it transparent. I'm going to make it red lined. And then I'm going to put the number 5 in front of it. Okay. So here's where I found the answer to number 5. That's just my extra step. What I want you to do now is pause the video once again and copy the answer to number 5 down in the discussion thread below. So again, I'm going to be looking for this answer to number 5 copied down below in the discussion thread. And that's your only task. And you can go ahead and submit your discussion thread after you copy that answer. So when I look at your response, you should have an answer to number 1 copied down and the answer to number 5 copied down. So you're not going to resubmit document C. I'm going to see that you watched this video by copying those 2 answers down below.